Well, good morning, everyone. We're here with Coherence Horsemanship Institute, coherencehorsemanship.com. And thank you, Sandra, for being here this morning and sharing with us about Chiron's way. And I'm so excited to delve into this, and I have a million questions for you. I wanted to introduce Sandra Wallin. She is a globally recognized educator, psychotherapist, and I love this horse listener with many academic accolades, as well as being a doctoral student in ecopsychology, which I can't wait for you to explain to us what that is. Sandra grew up riding bareback in the rainforests of British Columbia with nature as the classroom and her horse as the guide. She discovered a way to learn and listen, and she's been sharing this understanding in her equine guided programs for over 20 years. Sandra combines the power of belief building with the principles of nature to create transformational programs, which she has had the pleasure of sharing globally, and most recently in a local prison where she's helping men serving life sentences break free from the prison of their limiting beliefs. So welcome, my friend, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
I would love to hear what exactly it was that was discovered and uncovered as you rode bareback through the rainforests in Canada.
Well, there's a book I have to recommend highly. I read it in all of my equine guided workshops where we're going a little bit deeper than just the surface, which is everyone. And it's called The Other Way to Listen. But I didn't discover that until I was well grown up. But that's essentially what was happening. It's this beautiful story of a grandfather and his grandson. And being out in the woods, being out in the desert, being out in the sandy wash, being out on a high plain, and really the grandfather teaching him about how to listen to the world around him in ways that aren't necessarily spoken in the words that we tend to identify as language. So for me, growing up in this absolutely incredible, free, wild environment here on the west coast of British Columbia, where we'd play hide and seek in the ferns, and the ferns were taller than we were, and swinging on the cedar branches because they were so long and resilient and springy that they were like our swings. And then of course being able to be in that wild environment with the horses, and really especially the riding bareback piece, because I didn't know it then. I didn't have this conceptualization then, but I was becoming a centaur. Or centauress, depending on how you want to think about it. So the interconnectedness where two become one, and then more than two, because we were just two of an infinite number of voices and consciousnesses in that forest. It's giving me little goosebumps. It was really the most wonderful upbringing, and nature really co-parented me, as did the horses.
Nice. Yeah. I find that so interesting that it, as you said, it's not taught in the language that we would normally connect with learning, but it so is the basis of innately who we all are, and that is missing in our world. It truly is. And so you're bringing this to people in your workshops. And how do those workshops transpire? What people come to you from all over? I know you travel also, but what kind of a format do you follow?
The format changes and evolves constantly. What's centric at it is horse wisdom and the consciousness of horses and the environment. So if I'm teaching at my beautiful friend Jane Reed's place in Australia called Banyanda Naturally, then it's when does the kookaburra sing, which lets us know there's a closing of whatever's happening that day. Or we're walking along the Murray River and a black snake goes by. So, and then here, just a couple weeks ago, the bald-headed eagle that flies right above the paddock, and also noticing who notices it and who doesn't, because we don't all see those things. We're not all, our receptor sites aren't necessarily all open to that kind of magic and wonder and enchantment. And I think that's what being with the horses do. They breathe into our subconscious beliefs and programs, find out where we're stuck, where we're afraid, where we're joyful, where we're alive, where we're vibrant. And they kind of breathe into that and help us be more of who we are, but not necessarily as defined by typical nomenclature of being a human species, more that we're all one, like that beautiful book, A Kinship with All Life. So it's really a true partnership when we work with the horses, and as such, they are my co-creators, and so they're informing and defining and leading and guiding what happens next. And even though I might design a specific curriculum, once people come and show up into that container,
happen.
It's like, well, we're on horse time now, so we'll just see what happens. And actually, my mare Grace, this is her in this beautiful Kim McElroy painting behind me. She in particular taught me a lot about letting go of what I think I know and knew, and watching her take the lead, so to speak, and watching the master do it. But also then I think that puts our ego to the side, and we lead more with our heart and just being grounded in the possible. And when we're with horses, that really can take so many different forms and look so many different ways. So I start with a structure just because my left brain needs it, but then when we go out into the field or the paddock, we just let it unfold. We allow.
And that's a beautiful thing. I can completely understand what you're saying and empathize with what you're saying about having a structure, but it really isn't a structure. It's just, it actually turns into nothing when you step out there, for sure, and allow whatever is going to happen. And the information, do you find also, Sandra, that the information, you become the channel for that information to come through instead of it being something that you constructively think?
Truly, it doesn't come out, it comes from, around, and through. And it's like a quantum ideology where we think about, typically we think, oh, well, there's nothing in the space, but there's everything in the space. So it's kind of just seeing, well, and I really truly believe also in, because some people will come and they'll say, I've been dreaming about, like, they'll meet the horses and they'll say, I've been dreaming about that horse, or that horse has been coming to me in dreams for this long or that long. And so the little science geek in me loves the idea of quantum entanglement, but I think, oh, maybe there's a hypothesis around pre-entanglement, like how do we, and then of course that's possible in a quantum world because we're all interconnected and we're all one as defined by that possible those ideas. Yeah. So then why wouldn't horses be able to connect with us even though we haven't met them yet?
Yes.
Typically, in the normal sense of the word.
Yes, in the three-dimensional sense. I get what you're saying.
That is normal, right? Exactly.
I love when people will redefine what is considered quote-unquote normal. And it starts to encompass things that are considerably more exciting and interesting than our everyday life in the box, so to speak. True. Tell me about the name Chiron, Chiron's Way. I know that there is a story behind that.
There is a story behind that.
And I love stories.
I love stories too. When I finished my master's program to become a psychotherapist, I wanted to incorporate and have my own private practice. I was also a school counselor and school teacher, but I wanted to have, which I didn't need a name for, but I did for my business, the private work that I would be doing. And I really wanted to find something that really brought the idea of horses and humans together. And of course, that would just make sense for it to be a centaur. However, upon reading and doing the research, centaurs got a pretty bad rap, at least in how they were described. They seemed to be some pretty unruly creatures. So I thought, well, I can't really name, because I'm going to be working with children. Now, I can't really name my business after something that's sort of in one area of it is about this disgruntlement. So I then came across the myth of Chiron. And the beautiful, interesting story is way back when I was first wanting to learn how to formally do equine guided learning and leadership, there weren't any programs around, at least here in Canada. What was available was through NARA and EFMA in the US, with our beautiful Barbara Rector and Boo McDaniels as two of the grandmothers of that field. But here in Canada, there really wasn't anything. So when NARA had a conference in Seattle, I thought, well, I'm going to go down and attend that. And it was predominantly hippotherapy, therapeutic riding. There was just a couple of little tiny snippets of emotional and mental health and well-being in the company of horses. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to go to those lectures. A couple of weeks before the conference, I was in our little local bookstore, and as it often happens, you're walking down the aisle and a book just jumps off and falls off
the shelf.
on the floor in front of you. And I picked it up, and it was this beautiful, I happen to have it here. This beautiful, I'm sure everyone out there knows this book.
Oh, yes.
So I just loved the cover, and I loved the Tao Beckless, that sounds amazing. Hardcover, no, see, I like reading in the tub, so I like softcover books because these are too heavy, they get wet. So I thought, I'm going to put this away for now, and I'll come back and get it when it's in softcover. So I walk into the first lecture hall down in Seattle, and there on the overhead screen is this image. And so of course, it's Linda. And that's where I met Linda Kohanoff and went on to learn with and from her down in Tucson. But I said to my girlfriend that I was there with at the time, I said, you know what? I just have a feeling that I'm going to get the name of my business while we're here. And then Linda started, of course, to talk about the myth of Chiron, which I had been researching and reading, but it was just maybe the environment or whatever, and just the name, as you said, how the information drops in. I just heard Chiron's Way.
Yay.
That's
okay, now I got chills.
Good. And my husband was going, but no one will know what that means. And I said, exactly. And then I'll be able to tell them all about it. And then it will call in the people that find it evocative and are called by it, the frequency of it, or the idea of it, or the contemplation of it, or the reality of it, or not. And so it's kind of a little bit of it has names, words, language has its own identity or its own frequency. But when that just came in, it felt so right. It felt like it just belonged to me and of me. And so that's where Chiron's Way, the name, was born. And then I went on to discover further that, of course, one of Chiron's greatest teachings, because he's this amazing polymath who taught heroes and was the first ecologist, and contemplative and complementary medicine was thought to have originated with him, of course, because he had this wound that would never heal. And he went into the cave, Chiron's cave in Mount Pelion, and therein discovered the alternative healing arts. Wow. And so Chiron's Way is really in its core, although it's not necessarily written about that in the language of the website, is helping me, helping us, helping humanity find the gifts and the wisdom in the places where we have been wounded. Yeah. And predominantly, whether someone thinks they're coming here for goal A or B, what tends to be tied up or what precipitates that transformation is very often identifying and finding those treasures in the cave that we so often feel afraid to go into. But then there's like the subconscious mind has been given a really bad rap by people like Freud, who take it like, oh, it's this really dark, scary, perverted place. It's not. It's just a tape recorder that's been recording our life, everything. So to be able to work with the subconscious, which I really and truly believe horses are profoundly adept at doing, because Candace Pert, who wrote The Molecules of Emotion and won the Nobel Prize for discovering the opiate receptor. Yes, I'm going geeky. I'll come back for a second. She talks about the body being the subconscious mind. And I'm sure that all horse people that spend time with, on, around horses have probably experienced that in one degree or another, that the body itself is a profound carrier of information and of possibility. And someone like Carolyn Mace would say that our biology is our biography. Yes. So you said earlier, I love stories. Our stories are written in our physiology. They're stored there. And if there's a trauma story or a wounding story, the horses tend to, and certain horses more than others, I would say, are really gifted at kind of just finding that place, pushing out that edge, breathing into that spot where there's a grief, where there's a loss, where there's a stuckness, and help it become fluid so it can move again and become identified and worked with. And a lot of times it doesn't need any words. I mean, I'll say for myself, I've often been relegated to the role of space holder and translator.
Yes.
Because the horses are the ones that are doing the healing and the transforming and the awakening, and a little metaphoric kick in the pants when we need that as well, but predominantly really holding a place for people to go into that cave and shine the light around and come out new.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. That was very well said.
Thank you.
So I know that you have spent 20 plus years, probably a lot longer than that, working with people and horses. What are and you now recently have been working with prison inmates. What are the commonalities that you find in human beings, whether they be incarcerated or quote unquote, I'm going to use the word free, but in the outside world? Are there commonalities that you see between those, no matter where they reside or what life instances have put them into a situation, such as being incarcerated?
I think a couple of things are just rising to the surface right now. One is kind of the sense of belonging, of interconnectedness. We know what happens when children are raised in orphanages without touch, without contact. It damages us at a mental level in a profound way, which then affects our physiology. So I think that there's a primal, innate desire to belong and to be connected. And I think one of the things horses share so beautifully with people that tend to live on the thresholds or the outliers, as Malcolm Gladwell will call them perhaps, is that they either go to that edge place or they help people come in from that edge place without any judgment about why they're there. They just really want us, whoever the us is, to be authentic and congruent. When I work with children, I talk about it as their insides matching their outsides. And as humanity, we know we're the only ones that can put on a different than what we are inside. Mm-hmm. So the horses really give permission to whoever it is that they're working with to be raw, to be angry, to be vulnerable, to be elated, to be curious, but whatever it is that we're feeling, to just to honor that. So I think emotion as information. Carla McLaren writes about being an emotional genius. And I think that's what horses absolutely are. And they help us feel safe so that we can then start to make connections with other living things for those people that have been isolated from that. And then that can build upon itself. And I also think that we have an innate, I mean, I wrote my master's paper on this, like we had to defend whether are you born good or are you born bad, or like, and it's like, well, believing that we all come in as this beautiful, as Linda would talk about, tabula rasa, this blank slate, and certainly our environment influences, but I believe intrinsically we all have that pure heartedness, that place that we all, so that I think also is a commonality, and sometimes life bumps us off the pathway of that, but I think that it always remains, and I think that the horses see and know that. I think nature herself does as well, and I think that's why it's so beautiful and healing to be in nature, because we can just be honest about how and who we are in the moment. So present time is also a hugely important facet when we're working with the horses. So I think those would be the common things. I mean, there's so many other ones, but the one that kind of just rose up in me there was about this sense of belonging, and that we all have this capacity for love and to be loved and be loving.
And that really doesn't have, it does, yeah, it does. It doesn't have anything to do with where we are. It has to do with more of who we be.
Yeah, who we be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if there were 3 tools, Sandra, that you use regularly that could help anybody, no matter what their circumstance is, no matter where they are, no matter what they're dealing with, especially in this time when a lot of people are seeing outside themselves as being very difficult, and they're embodying that hardship. Are there 3 things that you would normally teach in your workshops and your teachings that would help people in this time, that are easy to share in a in a snippet?
Breath is really a beautiful one, and I think that if we remember to breathe, we say this when we're working with horses, whether we're doing mounted work or whether we're on the ground work, that when we hold our breath, we kind of go in and out of focus. We really want to be breathing, and there's so many ancient practices that talk about the power of breath, but it really does bring us into the present moment. And then I would also say listening.
Yes.
It's just such a beautiful thing, and we so rarely do it. So to go outside and just listen, because Carla McLaren talks about as well that fear is actually helping us access our highest level of intuition, and she has this beautiful exercise about being able to go out and listen to the sounds underneath the sounds, and really tune in and notice what we notice using our ears for sure. But I think there's other ways of listening too, like we listen with our heart, we listen with our body, with our guts, especially as horse people, that socio-sensual awareness, that ability to tune into subtle pieces of information that are adjusting and traveling through the environment. But listening to the outer world and also listening to our inner world, and notice where we kind of go down a rabbit hole or get lost. And so breath helps us listen. If we start to breathe, it brings us present, it makes it easier to listen. And then I would say, this is such a simple thing, but it's so profound. We would say this again in terms of horsemanship. Look where you're going. So the analogy is, if I flew to New York City, got out at JFK, hailed a cab, and the cab driver says, where can I take you? I say, well, don't take me to Times Square. Right? We tell our horses that because we always are focusing on what we don't want, and we do it as as commonplace as a human species,
Yes. Very
particularly
unfortunate.
in the Western world.
Yes.
So very often when I work with clients, you know, we come to that place of, well, you know, what is it that what did you come for? What would you like to work with? Well, I don't want that. If we can make the simple switch, flip the coin over from what we don't want to what we do want, even though it might feel like a pipe dream in the beginning, if we can focus on what we do want, we know that what we focus on, we create. So even though it feels like it's not the truth today, as long as I'm orienting my inner compass toward the destination that I want to arrive at, and the subconscious mind very benevolently gets on board, not because it necessarily, but it says, oh, well, she's focusing on this, we have to bring more of this. We tend to, however, focus on what we don't want. So if you think about that little analogy of the cab driver and say, how often in my life am I telling my driver where not to go? Be surprised how often that is. So if we can just make that tiny little shift in our mindset and turn toward what we do want, that will make all the difference in really truly every area of our lives. In our horsemanship, we send the picture to our horse about what we want this ride to be like, or what we want this leading exercise to be like, or to lift their hoof up when the farrier or the dentist comes, like the farrier this morning. Although my horses are they just literally walk up and put their feet on the hoof jack. They're just so, it's like spa day, we're getting our nails done kind of thing, you know. But to really encourage that. So when I work with people with horses as well, so where are you going? How are you going to know that you've gotten there? What will it look like when you arrive? It's kind of like, you know, the idea of if you're riding a horse, and they can sense and feel the most subtle change in our pelvis, so that even when I turn my head ever so slightly, that's communicated through to the horse. It's that Centaurian connection. So if we want the horse to go there, but we're looking over here, the horse will tend to come over here, although we're pulling on the reins, say, no, I don't want you to go here, I want you to go there, but we're not looking where we want to go. So in horsemanship, number one, but in life, number two, look where you want to go.
Or maybe it's in life number one also.
Could be.
As long as you're breathing, right?
breathing and listening, and
breathing and listening. Yes.
Your nose where you want to go, right?
Very nice. Very nice. So how do people find you, Sandra?
Typically through the I have a website called chironsway.com. So a lot of people just by accident find me there. And I hear from people going, oh, I was looking at this and then I accidentally found you, and I'm really excited and curious about X, Y, or Z. And also through word of mouth and friends and forums and the horse world is a small world, and we tend to so there's usually only 1 degree of separation between any of us, and usually that degree is a horse. So
yes.
So it's lovely that way. I love our community, but I also love how the messages of the horses are really starting to go far beyond just the traditional ways that we used to think. So people are working with horses in shamanic capacities, in healing capacities, as co-creators in terms of working with leadership development and managing and navigating belief and change and transformation. And so there really isn't any field that horses can't walk through and stand with you in. So if you're curious about that, I'm an expressive arts therapist, so my favorite things to teach are workshops that incorporate the creative expression with the horses. So
fun.
That's my jam. That's what I love doing. That's what I love doing the most. But it seems like people are really a lot now wanting to learn how to do the work that I do. So I do the trainer types of programs and certifications. But of course, if you're going to come and do that with me, you're going to learn some belief change work with horses, and you're going to learn some expressive therapies with the horses, because they have to go together. And actually, when I started doing this work with the students on my caseload, they really taught me a lot about what programs needed to entail, and a heck of a lot more doing and not a lot of talking. And that's where things like the expressive arts come in, because they're whole brained activities, number one, that help integrate the lessons of the horses, but they tend to make it more real, because it's easy to just forget about what happened in a session. Whereas if we're doing something concrete and translating what we're hearing into something tangible, like a mask, or like a painting, or a piece of collective prose or poetry, or myth making, something like that, then they have this to take away with them, and that tends to not get lost. And it also tends to put the lesson in a different way. So it's maintained.
I totally understand that. I've used that for many, many years. Creative poem writing as a group.
Oh yeah, I love it. My favorite thing in the world.
What amazing. I have a whole file full of those that should be a book, that are just, oh.
We should put them together.
Yes. Oh, just amazing. And I always love how we ask them to journal as they're doing their workshop. And then at the end, they underline 3 phrases and 3 words. And then everybody puts those on a piece of paper, and we throw them out on the ground.
Yep.
And somebody volunteers to be the narrator, writer, and the other one is the person that's scribe. And everybody gets to talk about what order they go in and how they flow, and know that they can't add words to that except things that connect them together. And oh my goodness, at the end they're like, we wrote that, that's amazing.
And they can't take words out either.
Yeah, there were no words taken out, no words really added except connecting, and then the poems are just amazing.
I actually have right here, because from the last workshop I just taught, I've got all the collective poems right here. And so isn't that fun?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're kindred spirits in that way as well.
Oh, it's so fun to do that. And I want to hear more about your work with the people in the prisons. I would love to do another chat with you and delve into that a little bit more. I have a program in Chico, California that I've been doing for about 5 years now with a psychotherapist. And she actually has an interview also on the site that I did with her. But it's been an amazing program that has changed so many lives just exponentially. And the joy and the light that comes through those people just standing in the presence of the horse is amazing. So I understand what you're doing, and thank you so much for doing what you do in such a big way.
Thank you.
Makes my heart happy.
I think we have 2 happy hearts today.
Yay. Well, and hopefully many more when they listen, and I hope that they connect with you. Do you have online teaching, Sandra?
I don't teach much online. I know that we're kind of being asked to move into that. There's some things that I do in a small ways. My private sessions, not with the horses, but my belief change sessions are all done online. I'm at this crossroads of, for me, that like equine experiential, like the experiential is, we can create different invitations and opportunities. And yet maybe I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I'm still holding on to this, that there's nothing like feeling the horse's breath on your face, and the smell of the horse is like all of that multi-sensory experience that happens when we're directly with them.
Yes.
So I'm kind of holding out that at least the horse pieces of that, although my dear friend Kim and I are writing a card deck, and from that will come opportunities for online engagement with the stories and the mythologies and the teachings of the horses that have wanted to be written about there. So we're planning on, once that's published, to be able to create online offerings around that, and then from there have small group intimate gatherings with in horse person with horses.
Yay.
We say in person, but how do you in horse?
In union.
Union, exactly.
Yeah. And Kim and I are working together also, so her beautiful artwork's going to be on the site, which I'm so thrilled about. And we're working on some things that are online, just collectively we're doing a meditation using her artwork and some of her poetry and some music, and yeah, it'll be amazing. So those kinds of things can go online and lots of people can enjoy them.
Yes, and Kim is a delight.
Yeah, so we've been having a lot of fun.
I bet.
Well, I don't want to take up more of your time, but thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to chatting with you again and maybe delving into a little bit more about your other program that you're doing. And until then, have a lovely day and be blessed.
Happy trails.
Yeah, same to you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.